All right, let's talk about something we've probably all experienced, that unique feeling of frustration when you're just trying to buy a concert ticket. Well, that feeling is at the center of a massive antitrust case the US government brought against Ticketmaster and its parent company Live Nation. We're going to break down the whole thing, the accusations, the defense, and what the final settlement really means for all of us. I mean, it's the question, isn't it? Your favorite band announces a tour. You're hyped, you log on right when tickets go on sale, and bam, crashing websites, endless queues, and service fees that make you wonder if they're a typo. It's just a universally maddening experience. And believe it or not, that very frustration is the emotional core of this huge legal fight. The Department of Justice, the DOJ, they looked at this whole situation and didn't just see bad customer service. Nope, they saw the potential makings of an illegal monopoly. And that kicked off one of the biggest antitrust cases the entertainment world has ever seen. So, how did we even get here? To a place where buying a ticket feels more like going into battle? Well, to really get the legal drama, you first have to understand the economic story that set the whole stage. You know, it really all goes back to how the music industry's finances got completely flipped on their head. Decades ago, tours were just giant advertisements to get you to buy the album. But then streaming came along, and suddenly live shows became the main way artists make their money. That shift made every piece of the concert pie, promotion, venues, and especially ticketing incredibly valuable, creating this high-stakes environment that led to the DOJ filing suit in 2024 and a settlement just a couple of years later. Okay, so with that economic shift as our backdrop, let's step into the courtroom. We're going to start with the government's case against Live Nation. What were they actually accused of? The whole case revolves around this one key concept, vertical integration. So, what is that? Well, imagine if a movie studio not only made the movie, but they also owned all the movie theaters and they owned the one and only website where you could buy a ticket. That's pretty much what the government claims Live Nation did with concerts. They control the tour promotion, the venues, and the tickets, the whole shebang. And this slide, wow, it shows you the before and after perfectly. On the left, you've got the old way, a bunch of independent promoters, venues, and ticket sellers all competing with each other. On the right, you have the Live Nation model, where all of those jobs are brought under one single roof. The government gave this system a name. They called it a flywheel. So what exactly is this flywheel? Well, it's the idea that each part of Live Nation's business feeds and strengthens the other parts. Their promotion arm signs the biggest artists. Those artists need to play in big venues, which Live Nation owns, and those venues are then forced to use Ticketmaster. It's a cycle that, according to the DOJ, makes it almost impossible for anyone else to compete. Now, this visual gets right to the heart of the government's argument, the harm they say this flywheel causes. They allege that Live Nation leverages its control over big tours to force venues into signing these long-term exclusive deals with Ticketmaster. And once those venues are locked in, what happens? Those sky-high fees get passed on to you, the fan. Now, of course, this has a fancy legal name, vertical foreclosure. It's just the technical term for what the DOJ was accusing Live Nation of, using their power in one part of the business, like tour promotion, to lock out or foreclose competitors in another part of the business, like ticketing. But here's where it gets tricky, and this happens in a lot of antitrust cases. Before you can prove that someone is a monopoly, you first have to agree on what market they're actually monopolizing. And this became a huge point of disagreement. And this chart just brilliantly shows why that definition is everything. The DOJ defined the market really narrowly. Primary ticketing for major concert venues. And by that definition, Ticketmaster has a staggering 86% of the market. But Live Nation argued for a way broader definition. All live events, which includes stuff like sports, plays, you name it. In that much bigger pond, their market share suddenly drops to a much less intimidating 40%. So that's the government's case in a nutshell. It really hinges on that narrow definition of the market. Now, let's flip over to the other side of the courtroom and hear Live Nation's defense. Live Nation's core argument was pretty straightforward. They basically said, hey, we're not monopolists, we're just efficient. They claimed their all-in-one structure isn't some evil plot to crush rivals, but that it's actually the only way to manage the incredibly complex, massive global tours that fans and artists expect today. And this visual here lays out their whole counterstory. They argued that trying to coordinate the logistics, the marketing, the venues, and the ticketing for a world tour is just a monumental task. By putting all those pieces together, they say they create a smooth process that actually helps everyone, Artists get paid, venues get the best tech, and fans get a system that can handle huge demand. I love this table because it puts the two stories right up against each other. It's the same business model, just seen from two totally different perspectives. Live Nation says, we give artists huge financial guarantees with zero risk. The DOJ says, you force artists to use your other services. Live Nation says, we give venues awesome technology. The DOJ says, you lock them into contracts for up to 7 years. And of course, you knew it was coming. We have to talk about the Taylor Swift Eras Tour presale disaster. Now, for fans, it was an absolute nightmare. But for Live Nation, they actually spun it as part of their defense. Their argument was basically, look how insane the demand was. The fact that our system buckled just proves that only a company of our enormous size could even try to handle something that big. So you have these two powerful, completely opposite stories. The case was speeding towards what would have been an epic trial, but it never actually got there. Instead, they reached a settlement. So, what was in the final deal? The settlement really boiled down to 3 key things. First, Live Nation had to sell off a few of its amphitheaters. Second, and this is a big one, they had to shorten their exclusive ticketing contracts with venues, which should, in theory, open the door for more competition. And third, they had to give rival ticketing companies some access to their tech. But, and this is the most crucial point, the settlement did not require Live Nation to be broken up. They didn't have to sell off Ticketmaster. Their fundamental, vertically integrated business model was allowed to stay intact. So the flywheel keeps on spinning, just maybe with a few new speed bumps. So the case is settled. But the real story here, the reason we're talking about it, goes way beyond just concert tickets. Let's zoom out for a second, because this whole fight is really just a preview of a much bigger question facing our entire modern economy. I mean, think about it. This tension between being efficient and being anti-competitive is everywhere you look. You've got tech companies that run the App Store while also selling their own apps on it. You've got delivery companies that ship everyone's packages but also sell and prioritize their own products. It's the same basic structure we just saw with Live Nation. And that's why this case matters so much beyond the music world. It perfectly captures one of the single biggest challenges for regulators today. What do you do with these giant integrated companies that are, on one hand, super efficient, but on the other hand, potentially so dominant that they choke off all competition? Which leaves us with the big, unanswered question at the heart of all of this. Where is the line? At what point does a company's structure stop being a smart business move for efficiency and start becoming a weapon for boxing out its rivals? The Live Nation settlement put up a few guardrails, but the debate over that fundamental question, well, that is far from over.